My name's Tammy Parlour. I'm an instructor at Chang's Hapkido Academy. I'm a 4th degree black belt. I've been training for the past 24 years and I now currently run a school in London, the London branch of Chang's Hapkido Academy. Hapkido uses techniques that focus in on the weak points of an opponent's body, the joint manipulation, etc., pressure point techniques, but then also using circular motion to redirect their force against them. For hundreds of years, there were lots of different martial arts styles taught in Korea. There were kicks and punches, throws, weapon techniques, all sorts of things. In the 16th century, the area that we now know as Korea was actually divided into 3 kingdoms, and it was the Silla kingdom that taught all the martial art techniques together. However, they didn't have a particular name for it. They just simply called it Hoshinsul, which meant self-defense techniques. In the 1900s, Japan invaded Korea, and they outlawed all martial arts. Anyone practicing had to hide themselves up in the mountains, and a lot of the martial art masters hid themselves in the mountain monasteries. One great master at that time was Master Choi Young-sul. He had studied Aikido in Japan and also lots of other different Korean martial arts. One of his students was Jihan Jae. After Japan left Korea, the government wanted to organize martial arts society. Master Ji took the styles, the techniques that Choi had taught him and gave it the name Hapkido and created what we now call as the Korean Hapkido Association. The word Hapkido is actually made of 3 Korean words, hap, ki and do. Hap means coordination of mind and body, or total concentration, being right here, one with the moment now. Ki means inner power or life force or mind. Do means discipline or the body or the way. So put together, coordination of mind and body. So through the study, the practice of Hapkido, we learn to coordinate our inner power through disciplined life in order to achieve our inner potential. That's what Hapkido means. Many people have asked me, why did I start learning Hapkido? What made me choose Hapkido instead of another martial art? It's a very difficult question to answer because I was actually quite young. I started training when probably I was about 12 years old, and I was a typical kid who, I don't think I'd seen any martial art movies or whatever, but I suddenly decided one Christmas I want to learn karate. So my parents looked around to find a karate school, and strangely enough, we lived very close to where Master Chang was teaching Hapkido. We went over, we visited him, and the same day I joined. Since that time, since 12 years old, I've continued training under Master Chang. My master, Gedo Chang, grew up in one of the mountain monasteries. His father was a Buddhist monk. When he left the mountains, he was already a very well-established, high-level martial art master. He studied Hapkido or Hoshinsul. He came down, and when he came down to the city, he discovered that in order to practice martial arts, you had to be registered with a government organization. So he registered himself under Master Ji's society. Later on, he decided that he wanted to share his training and knowledge and wisdom throughout the world, which we're very pleased he did, and he moved to America. He finally settled in one of the suburbs in Chicago and started up his own school, which became Chang's Hapkido Academy. That was back in the early 70s. I started training with Master Chang in the early 80s, and since have set up the London Academy of Chang's Hapkido Academy. Master Chang has been an amazing influence on my life. He is, to me, like a second father. From 12 years old, now I'm 36, so 24 years, he has been an amazing influence. He, both as an instructor, also he's an enlightened man. His philosophy, his teachings have totally influenced who I am today. When I finally left America, I lived there for about 12 years, one of the hardest things I struggled with was the fact that maybe now I would not be able to continue training under him, continue being one of his students. I was already one of his instructors, luckily. I came to England and there was no question he would continue to support me. Now he travels over and grades my students here in London. I think that's absolutely amazing. I'm totally loyal to him. He amazes me every time he comes here, the loyalty, the love between instructor and student. Also, once you've trained under somebody of his caliber, the thought of going somewhere else is just ridiculous. Why would I? I still have so much to learn from him. Particularly when I came to England and set up my own academy, many people thought, oh wow, you're a woman, you're a martial art instructor, that's a bit strange, or wow, it must be really different being a female martial artist. I started to think, oh, is it? It's funny, I never thought about it. I never thought about being a woman in, yes, martial arts are predominantly male-orientated environment, but I never realized it was never something I was particularly conscious of. I was just there to train. I wonder, in hindsight, I wonder, growing up in America, whether that had any influence on the fact that as the women in America are pushed more, perhaps sport-orientated, I don't know. But I think my instructor, never a difference between man or woman at all. You're a student, so I'll train you. Also, the point about if you're worried about, oh, you're against a opponent and you're worried about, oh, he's a man, he's much bigger than I am, well, how can I do anything? So, being a woman martial artist, I never thought about it. However, if you're asking me from a physical perspective, there are some differences. Women have a tendency not to be as physically strong. So hapkido is okay though, because the techniques are designed to use your opponent's energy. So a smaller opponent can easily subdue a larger opponent. Maybe women's hips are a little different. Childbearing hips, so often our center of gravity is a lot lower. So sometimes it's a little harder to get the real high jumping techniques. So fine, there are other, hapkido is so diverse that has lots of different things, lots of different opportunities in order to learn different techniques. And also maybe I just need to do more sit-ups. An expert is said to act in a state of mushin. Mushin means no mind. No mind doesn't mean totally dead or not thinking. No mind means it's almost like your mind has been parked. Total concentration on the here and now. When you're totally thinking about what's happening here now, then nothing else matters. You could totally be here with the moment. So, for instance, you imagine you're faced with a big opponent. Maybe if you're thinking, oh, he's so big, oh, maybe he's gonna kill me, this sort of thing, or oh, I know his kicks are really high, really fast, how am I gonna deal with that? In that situation, how can you act? No, instead, okay, fighting stance, just right here, right now. Think of nothing else. Then you can react as expert. Master Chang has a lovely story he often tells. He says, someone walks through the forest and maybe a rabbit makes a little bit of a noise underneath a bush. Maybe an ordinary person, oh, what is that? Oh no, what am I going to do? Maybe someone has had bad experience in the past of being something stolen, maybe handbag snatch, this sort of thing, immediately grabbing their handbag. However, an expert martial artist walking through, hears the rustling of the bush, there's a rabbit running away, they're frightened of me. In other words, when we totally can be right here in the moment, we're not controlled by external circumstances. We can see things for what they are. Obviously, to create the state of mind that we're talking about takes long time practice. It's not something that's going to happen instantaneously. Meditation, fantastic for developing, for clearing the mind, developing this sort of mindset. Also discipline, extremely important. When the instructor says, John, come over here immediately. Yes, sir. you can't think of anything else. This is the importance of having discipline within martial arts in order to help students clear the mind. Also at the start of class we do something called danjan ho hap. Danjan means abdomen, ho hap breathing. So we start, danjan ho hap means abdominal breathing exercise. It's like moving meditation. So we do this at the start of class in order to concentrate, total concentration, also other reasons as well, more oxygen into our lungs, etc., etc. But one main reason is in order to concentrate on the here and now. Hapkido is based on 3 principles. 1, hua and yu. Hua, harmony or non-resistance. If you imagine someone pushing you, in Hapkido you wouldn't push back, fight, resist against the attack. Instead, you would pull. So in other words, you're coming in harmony with the energy and redirecting that force. We can apply the same into our daily life as well. If you have a disagreement, it's best not to bang your head against the wall, but rather together we can find out a better way. Huan means circular motion. In nature, we often see things reoccurring all the time. A lot of circularity in nature. In Hapkido as well, same principle, the whole redirection, the whole circular motion. You can see it in the techniques that we do. Lots of small circles, large circular movement. Yu is the last principle. Yu is the water principle. If you think of water, water is such a powerful force. However, it's also very soft. The powerful and the soft to get marrying together. Also, you imagine a stream flowing constantly. Then maybe a rock appears in the stream. The stream doesn't stop. Instead, it redirects itself around. It's a constant flowing motion. Again, in the Hapkido principles, having to change direction, constantly moving. Many of the martial arts through the ages started to specialize in particular bits. For instance, karate, taekwondo, kicks and punches, judo, certain type of throwing. Hapkido was not the only one, but one of the few that actually kept all these techniques under one name, under one system. So you have kicks and punches, throws, joint manipulation, pressure point techniques, weapon techniques, meditation. Also, in Hapkido, they emphasize spiritual development, personal development, rather than competition and tournaments. So a totally different emphasis to maybe some other martial arts. People come to train in Hapkido for lots of different reasons. Some people for fitness, some people for self-defense, some people for spiritual development, this sort of thing. However, the integration of the Hapkido principles into one's daily life is seen as one of the key objectives of Hapkido training. There's a lovely samurai maxim. It says, "He who has mastered an art will reveal it in his every action." It's wonderful, the coming together of the physical side and also the philosophical side. If someone was starting up a martial art, or maybe they've been practicing for a long time, I would give them the same advice. That is, put your judgments aside, totally be here, one with the moment, not judging what's happening, just doing it. If the art was simply a physical discipline, I can't imagine that I would still be doing it 24 years later. I think a lot of people, they start out maybe thinking just, oh yeah, it's just about kicking and punching, but the more they train, the more they see how Hapkido principles relate to life. They start to understand themselves better, their self-esteem and confidence grows, and start to understand that actually the more they excel within the classroom, the better outside also their daily lives become. These things so interrelated. Master Chang has a wonderful phrase that he often repeats to his students. He says that excellence is not an action, excellence is a habit. Through discipline, we create the conditions, the habits, in order that we can truly realize our potential.